Here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Temper Tantrum Day. GOP acting like 2-year-olds in the cereal aisle where mom is saying no sugary cereal for you. Very unhappy they are. Very unhappy the GOP is over the fact, as Susan Collins put it, the inflation bill that Manchin's behind, the investments in dealing with climate change, the changes to the tax code. Wow, are they fit to be tied? And as she said, came out of the blue. They weren't expecting it. So the fact that Mitch McConnell and the Republicans got snookered has them all in a tizzy. And according to her, because Democrats had the audacity to do something to save the planet, efforts to save same-sex marriage over. You love people and everything else. Understand, this is going to be a very interesting next couple of months as Republicans are going to, kick and scream. And I want to see this. This is where I want a talking filibuster. This is where democracy should come into place. This is where we, as people who want our government to function, should be demanding a talking filibuster. If you want to filibuster something, you should have to get your comfortable shoes. Maybe Obama will lend them to you because he didn't use them during his 8 years. Maybe you get your comfortable shoes, get your bottle because you might have to go. Get your reading material, whatever it is you need. Get your presentation, get your charts, your whatever, and hold the floor. Tell us why you're against whatever it is that you're against. Explain to us why the PACT Act is so bad. Pat Toomey, why? Why is it that taking care of our veterans is such a horrible thing? Now, Jon Stewart today ripped into Republicans for blocking the Veterans Aid bill. He said, and in a very, I'm gonna FCC this up, but he said, if this is America first, then America is blanked, begins with an F, has a K in the middle, ends in a D, blanked, and I agree with him. If this is America, if this is the Republican version of America first, the country's blanked. He says, look, I'm used to the lies. I'm used to the hypocrisy. I'm used to the cowardice. I'm used to it all, he says. But I'm not used to the cruelty. Oh, John, that's the heart and soul of the Republican Party. Cruelty. He goes on to say Republicans haven't met a war that they won't sign up for, and they haven't met a veteran that they won't screw over. And this it. Now, as he went on to say also, they'll maybe get it done in recess. And he said, look, all these veterans, these 3.5 million veterans who have cancer, do you think their cancer is going to take a recess while they go on vacation? Do you think their cancer is going to take a recess while they, go visit family, go back to their districts? No. This is infuriating. This, again, is one of those moments of all this is about. Pure politic, pure butthurt. And this is what this is. Nothing else, because understand, it was just a couple of days ago. This passed big. Of the 100-member Senate, you had 34 Republicans who voted for it and 50 Democrats. You had 84 senators vote for this. How is it now it didn't? Now you go, but Rick, what are you talking about? What is this piece of legislation? Well, what it is back during the mid-2010s, somewhere around there, our military was burning stuff on foreign bases to dispose of stuff, all kinds of toxic stuff, just burning stuff, toxic stuff, all kinds of just burn. And the smoke was, blowing right into the places where all of our heroes were living, because you can't have, things off site. So they breathed this, and now they've got cancer. About 3.5 million of them. So this piece of legislation is going to cost, what they're saying, an estimated $180 billion over the next 4 years. Oh, by the way, this is the stuff that we were talking about years ago before we got involved in going to Iraq and Afghanistan and getting involved in these long, prolonged wars. Just kind of a thought. These were the costs that we were going to have to pay for, that nobody really wanted to talk about. Russian, yes, but nobody wants to talk about, hey, how do we deal with the aftermath? And this is just one part of this. I'm angry, I'm frustrated, because this should have been 100-0. There should have been no Republicans against this, especially since they're the ones who love to wrap themselves in the flag and wrap themselves around veterans for the photo ops. It's infuriating. Now, like I said, get ready for them to hold their breath and kick and scream in the cereal aisle, because they're not getting their way, because they can't hold the country hostage, although they're going to try today, for instance, outside of the PACT Act. All but 24 House Republicans voted against the CHIPS bill. And you go, what? I thought Republicans were the ones who wanted to bring back reshore manufacturing. I thought this was the center of MAGA world. Isn't this what Donald Trump was talking about? We're going to rebuild manufacturing. We're going to bring the jobs back. We're going to recreate the 50s. It's going to be great. This should have passed. People like me, the ones who go, should we not? We shouldn't be giving so much money to corporate America. We should be handing out the welfare. We should be the people screaming against it. And I'm saying, look, it is corporate welfare. But in this moment, it's what we need to compete with China, because, here's the reality. China's handing out huge, enormous amounts of corporate welfare to take over our manufacturing. And they've done it quite well. Because again, here's the reality. The reality is our CEOs are the real welfare queens. And they don't care about country. They don't care about flags. They care about profit. They care about money. That's all they care about. And if you're not going to make it economically possible for them to bring back those jobs, they're not going to. So I find it interesting that the Republicans, all but 24 of them, mostly Midwest Republicans, mostly from Ohio, because most of those jobs are going to be going to Ohio and the Midwest. One Republican from Pennsylvania. All of the Republican delegation from PA voted against it. My Congressman Scott Perry, obviously a no, because why would you vote for national security? Why would a former general, or I guess he still is, why would a traitorous general, vote for a national security issue like reshoring manufacturing? Because I believe manufacturing is a national security issue. If you can't make the little smart chips that make your smart bomb smart, all you have are things that go boom. Problem. So I look at this, and again, these are the people who tell you America first, country first, and then vote party first. Are we surprised? No. And this is who they are. Now, the guy who's the head of the Club for Growth, he's actually the vice president, a guy named Scott T. Parkinson. He was on Twitter yesterday having a meltdown. He said the House GOP should kill chips now that 17 Senate GOPers got played by Schumer and Manchin on reconciliation. Kill it now. Now, this is the guy. This is the business guy. Remember when the Club for Growth was all about business? Now it's just all about politics. It's all about power. And this is where we have to reclaim, and throw some of these bums out. Sadly, the Republican Party has been taken over by ideologues and crazy people. And I'm hoping that at some point, Republican voters have this kind of a epiphany, because we need a sane, rational second party. You need something. I'm hoping they wake up, have a moment of clarity, have an epiphany, have an awakening, and and take their party back to something near the sane line. Because what we're seeing, really crazy. I know. But Rick, both parties do this stuff. Not like this. Not like this. Not over this kind of stuff. These are really important bills. Reshoring our manufacturing, enormously important. Taking care of the people that we put up on pedestals and called heroes, people that we sent into harm's way to fight in our name. What kind of a message does that send globally? What does it send? What message does that send for young people who what does it send for the next generation? What message is that? I remember when the Marine recruiter came to my house when I was in high school. And my grandfather, who I didn't actually know was ever in the military. I kind of knew, but he never talked about it. I knew he fought in World War II, didn't know the extent, didn't know anything. But the second he saw that Marine recruiter on our step, he lost his mind, and chased him almost halfway across town, as I understand it. And then, the line he gave me is, if you join the military, I'll kill you myself. Because his mindset was, they don't care about you. They don't take care of you. They're going to send you into harm's way. And you're just, like he said, do you know what GI stands for? And I'm like, no, government issue. If it comes between you and a tank, kiss your behind goodbye, because you can be replaced. The tank can't be. And that was a direct line from someone who served in World War II. Because he saw it. And my view has always been, if we're going to send people into harm's way, if we're going to call on people to do this, we've got to take care of them. We've got to make sure that he's wrong going forward. Sadly, he hasn't been. And again, here we go. Thanks, Pat Toomey. You've proven him right once again. Love to hear your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK. 1-866-416-7425. Going to take a quick break. Right back after this. If you're just joining us, make sure you grab the podcast. Never miss a second. Also, email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com, with any thoughts, questions, comments. Back after this. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our Labor History in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. You know, generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
1-866-416-RICK. 1-866-416-7425. Let's go to the phones. Got Alice on line 1. Alice, how are you today?
I'm doing well. I wanted to say this. You know, we have specifically since probably the 30s, made sure that in the armed forces are basically the lower income boys and men. And because you very rarely see someone who is well off join the armed forces.
Yeah, read Smedley Butler's War is a Racket.
Well, it is, and it is, and you can just see, it's very aggravating to me because my family, all sides of my family, have served in the various branches of the military. And my uncle that just passed away last year, he was in the Navy, and he was on the nuclear sub. And he came down with cancer, and he had been exposed to a lot of stuff when he was in the Navy. And, he would go to the Veterans Hospital, the local Veterans Hospital. And as they were cutting things, it was harder and harder for him to get in. And I just think it's just ridiculous the way that, and let's face it, it is the Republicans, and I'm tired of hearing both parties because it's not both parties, it's the Republicans. The Republicans want everybody to come join, put your life on the line, die for the freedom, but we don't give a flying fig Newton about you once you get sick or killed.
Yep. No, I saw it as a kid growing up. I grew up in a housing project on the west side of Cleveland when they dumped all those men coming back from Vietnam back into our housing project, all of them with broken minds, bodies, drug and alcohol problems. They were just dumped like garbage, and it was horrible to witness. And I had hoped we would do better. No, I think we've done obviously better than then, but not right by these men and women. It's disgraceful, and I agree with Jon Stewart. If this is America first, then America's blanked.
Well, I agree with you, and both of my stepsons served in the Army, and my oldest stepson just retired with 25 years, and he was in Desert Storm, and then I have various cousins too. But I just get so aggravated that they're going, oh, let's wrap ourselves in the flag, wave it around a little bit. The only people that died for you is the armed forces and Jesus. Oh, you're sick now? Sorry about your luck. But you have a good evening, Rick.
Yeah, thanks so much. I appreciate it, Alice. I look at the Smedley Butler quote, war is a racket. It always has been. It's possibly the oldest, easily the most profitable, surely the most vicious. It is the only one international in scope. It is the only one in which the profits are reckoned in dollars and the losses in lives. And one of his most popular quotes is, he was high paid muscle. He was a gangster for capitalism. He was the high priced muscle for for the bank boys and the sugar interests and National City Bank and all these places across the globe, because he was a major general in the Marine Corps, and he was one of the people who stepped forward and said, this is wrong. And what we've done to people is just flat out wrong. Now, what we got from Marjorie Three Names, because she's back, Marjorie Trainwreck Green said that, hey, toxic masculinity should be a top military requirement. Yeah. Evidently, according to her, that's what we should want. And my first thought when I saw this is, you can be masculine without being a complete a-hole, and without being toxic. The fact that they're embracing the whole thing, just tells you that there's no bottom for these people. And again, these are the same people who don't know what a woman is. But Josh Hawley is writing a book and wants to tell us what a man is. He's got a book coming out titled Manhood: The Masculine Virtues Americans Need. This is what's known as a tryhard. It's okay. No one cares, Josh. And no one would be surprised if Mr. GQ Snappy Dresser falls out of the closet. But this is one of those weird moments because, yesterday I talked a little bit about this Andrew Torba, who is one of the guys that Doug Mastriano is hanging around with. And one of the things that grabbed my attention is on this front of what men are. He said, we need Christian men who embrace their God-given masculine energy to conquer and lead. He said, currently we have weak and pathetic, emasculated Christians, Christian men like Mike Pence, he says, who embrace submissive feminine energy. He says that ends now. If we're going to build a Christian movement, it must be exclusively Christian, and we can't even be afraid to say that out loud. He goes on to say, and this is the really scary stuff, he goes on to state Christian nationalism is not merely a political movement, it's a social, cultural, and spiritual one. Christian nationalism, according to Andrew Torba, is not merely limited to the right wing in the United States. Our king has dominion over the entire earth, every square inch. He says, we're done being the footstool of the enemy. We're done being pushovers. We're done with simply wanting to be left alone. Now we want to win souls for Christ, win elections, win the culture, win the education system, win with our own technology, our own media, our own entertainment, win for the glory of God. I'm wondering if he's talking with a bomb strapped to his chest. I'm wondering if he thinks 77 virgins are at the end of all of this. Because again, he finishes up with that Christians, that the chosen people, are only those who follow Jesus. People like him. Scary, scary stuff. Let's quick go to the phones. We've got Gary from Minneapolis online too. Gary, how are we doing today?
Good. How you doing, Rick?
Living the dream, my brother. What's on your mind?
Well, I just want to say, I noticed lately those Republicans, climate deniers or warming of the planet deniers, whatever you want to call them, they've been more quiet lately, and then I was surprised on my TV today or yesterday, the other Republican Congress, I think he's in Congress, he's running for Congress in Georgia, and he said climate change is real, something I don't hear very much from them, hardly ever. And he was talking I just remember Georgia, they got all flooded out all the time. They got hurricanes, the oceans are rising. His constituents, maybe a lot of Republican voters were raising hell about it, I think. And so, anyways, now it's right in our face. We can see it starting to come back at it. It's probably pretty late, though.
Yeah, and that's the concern. The concern that it's getting to be too late, and that anything we have to do is going to be drastic. And we're not that people, Gary. I don't think we are.
No. Well, maybe the Pearl Harbor effect is starting to come here. That's what they call what woke us up in the Second World War, and this is probably going to finally. I might be too late, but we got to try. That's all I did. 30 years ago, I was trying to do something, and they also said that the young ones, the millennials and the Gen X and them, they know they've been had. They're inheriting this crap. Our generation, the seniors, left them, and we didn't try. Some of us were trying, but the big money shut it down all the time.
Yeah, the big money always seems to do that. Gary, I appreciate the thoughts, man. Thanks so much.
Yeah, you got a great program.
Appreciate it. Great, Gary. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. And this is, look, the reality is the young generation, they get it because they are going to inherit a lifetime of hotter temperatures, more extreme storms, more difficulty because of our failures. And look, I remember as a kid thinking that, there was going to be great opportunities. Carter put solar panels on the White House and Reagan came and ripped them off. And here we are all these years later, still trying to fight to get just back to where we were back when I was a kid, hopeful and that there's a possibility of something different. But I think this time might be different because we might not have a choice. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I'm going to take a quick break. We come back. Andrew Yang, Christy Todd Whitman, number of Republican folk coming together. Third party. Going to find out if that's a good idea, bad idea, and what possibly behind it. You don't want to stick around for that. Quick break. Right back. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1917. That was the day more than 10,000 African Americans marched down New York's Fifth Avenue in what is known as the Silent Parade. The protest came in the aftermath of the July 2nd East St. Louis race riot and a number of lynchings in Texas. Organized by black scholar and activist W.E.B. Du Bois, James Weldon Johnson, and the NAACP, the Silent Parade protested lynchings and anti-black violence. Children led the march dressed in white. Women, who were also dressed in white, followed them. Men dressed in dark suits marched behind. It was considered the first public protest of racial violence in the United States. Alexis Newman describes the scene as the parade proceeds to Madison Square. The marchers carried banners and posters stating their reasons for the march. Both participants and onlookers remarked that this protest was unlike any other seen in the city and the nation. There were no chants, no songs, just silence. Some signs read, "Mother, do lynchers go to heaven?" and "Mr. President, why not make America safe for democracy?" Protesters hoped President Woodrow Wilson would make good on his election promises to promote rights for blacks. But Wilson took no action. In fact, he opposed anti-lynching legislation and continued segregationist policies in federal offices. In an editorial for the New York Age, James Weldon Johnson pointed out, quote, that their brothers and sisters, people just like them, were Jim Crowed and segregated and disenfranchised and oppressed and lynched and burned alive in this, the greatest republic in the world, the great leader in the fight for democracy and humanity. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Last July, several GOP senators combined their 5-watt intellects to charge that inflation was rising because of, quote, insane tax and spending spree of President Biden and the Democrats. Never mind that the insane spending is for such sensible, productive, and enormously popular national needs as child care and jobless benefits. Mitch McConnell's rabidly partisan flock saw the chance to politicize the public's legitimate worries about rising prices. You poor consumers are made to pay more for basics, they squawked, because of Socialist Joe's investment in grassroots people. Follow the ricocheting pinball of the GOP's logic. 1, they say that helping hard-hit families induces them to refuse to go to work. 2, this creates blockages in the global supply chain. 3, this causes shortages of everything. 4, this forces corporate bosses to raise all prices, which 5, slams the middle class and poor, so 6, lazy workers cause inflation. Whoa, Rube Goldberg couldn't have dreamed up a more fantastical diagram to deflect attention from what's really happening, namely that instead of an inflation problem, we have a corporate greed problem. Of course, the greedmeisters insist that their pursuit of excess corporate profits has not driven any price surges. In our economy of free market competition, they snap, prices are established by the law of supply and demand. It's the magic of the marketplace, they explain. But magicians don't do magic, they perform illusions. And the illusion of free market competition implodes when it hits the reality that our economy doesn't remotely resemble a competitive marketplace. This is Jim Hightower saying, for some 40 years, corporate-directed government policies have been transforming America into a monopoly nation, letting the few gouge the many. That's where inflation comes from.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So yesterday we talked about Andrew Yang and Christy Todd Whitman coming together for a kind of a marriage, if you will, of creating a third party. It's going to be the Forward Party is what they're calling it, and this is the marriage of a couple of groups, as we talked about. Andrew Yang's Forward group, this Renew America Movement group. They're a bunch of former, Reagan, Bushies, even some Trump folks into this. The Serve America Movement, which I guess is former Republican Congressman David Jolly's group. They're going to all come together. And the frame evidently is not right, not left, forward. Yeah, forward. I'm not quite sure what the goal here is, because as we talked about yesterday with Reed Galen, the reality is you got to have kind of an issue, the issue being something that brings you all together. I don't know what this is. I guess forward. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on what this could mean and maybe who's funding all of this? That's why I've asked my good friend Pat LaMarche to come talk with us. Pat is an author, homelessness awareness advocate, and also former vice presidential candidate for the Green Party, so someone who knows a little bit about third-party runs. Pat, thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks for having me, Rick.
So when I saw this story,
love talking to you.
I appreciate it. When I saw this story, I thought of you because I know how difficult of a time you had back in 2004, and I know how hard it is for third parties to get off the ground and how much money it takes. So my mind immediately went to who's bankrolling this whole thing, because I don't think it's Andrew Yang. I don't think he's dumb enough to dig into his own pocket. That's where my mind went right away.
Yeah, mine too. I did do a little more research today after I talked to you on the phone, and I was fascinated by the fact that they say this is not about the presidential election in 24. One of the things I read that they said was they're going to try and get ballot status in 30 states, and they're going to run for lower ticket things up to Congress. And they're going to get ballot status in 2 years? Are you kidding me? I mean, when I ran in 2004, the Green Party was 20 years old. So, and we had ballot status in 37 states. So enough states to win the Electoral College. If you could win the Electoral College, you didn't need the 13 states we weren't on to win enough Electoral College votes. But it's fascinating that they say that's not their agenda. Although one of the things that is interesting is it sounds a little like they think they might like to be kingmakers.
Yep.
Where if they can get enough ballot status, they're going to say, we're going to leverage you to allow us to be, to pick the candidate or to sway some of this, maybe get superdelegates or something like that. It's all I can think of because none of the rest of it makes sense. When the Green Party gets candidates on the ticket, it's because we have literally thousands of volunteers collecting signatures door to door. It's not like you say, I want to run for office, and they put your name on the ballot. Every state has different ballot status and ballot access laws.
And it costs money to do that stuff. Now, as I talked last night with Reed Galen, the co-founder of the Lincoln Project, he was saying, like in states like Utah, it's much easier. States like California, it's incredibly difficult. States like Pennsylvania, it's costly. There's a whole varying degree of institutional knowledge that has to be had, which means lawyer fees. You need actual people on the ground that you're paying. There's a lot of expense here. So we're talking probably millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, if not even higher than that. So again, I keep coming back to where's this cash coming from and for what purpose? Because I don't see
My guess is $150 million. If they are starting from scratch, they need $150 million to get on the ballot.
But I don't see the agenda, though. I mean, it's nice. It's nice rhetoric. We're not right. We're not left. We're forward. Okay, what does that mean exactly? That's not really an agenda. Are you the party of? Is it you going to be the party of compromise? What's your defining issue? Compromise? That's not really a selling point. We're going to go halfway on every issue. Is not really a selling point.
Well, that's the other interesting thing is that they said one of the things that I read today was that they were going to not be a party of ideology, and that's why they would succeed. And I've got news for them. Every third party that's done anything worthwhile, and a lot of them have, like if your definition of worthwhile is get the presidency, okay, then rule all of us out. But if your definition of worthwhile is, eliminating slavery, then the Abolitionist Party was pretty darn important through the history of time, right? Third parties have driven wage issues. They have driven social justice issues. They've done amazing, important things because they had strong ideology.
No, I mean, the Republican Party was a third-party idea who had a single focus, and slavery. And they did that. Now, since then, they've gone freaking crazy and want to reestablish it, so to speak. But what's the unifying message in this? I don't see it. I don't see the unifying message being, well, we don't have one.
I think so. I mean, all I can imagine is that they want to leverage. It looks like they just want leverage, or they want to eliminate other third parties. right? I mean, the Democrats hate the Greens, the Republicans hate the Libertarians. No, nobody wants a Libertarian candidate to what they think of as take votes away from the Republicans, so they don't want the Libertarian on the ballot. So maybe they're thinking if they can do an all-consuming third-party sort of umbrella, that then they can negotiate to keep the other parties off the ballot. And that's not how ballot access works.
So let me ask you this, because as I'm looking at this, there's part of me goes, okay, Christy Todd Whitman isn't a Trump Republican. I at least I don't think she is. You can disagree. I don't like her. I find her repulsive, especially with her behavior around 9/11. But I don't see her as a Trumper. There's part of me that goes, is this a way to kind of tap down Trump's ability to win going forward by giving the more moderate, if there are moderate Republicans left, a place to go, because they're not going to vote for Democrats, but they can't quite vote for Trump. We're giving them a third place to go. Is that possible?
To be the Ross Perot's of 2024?
Yeah, something along those lines.
I mean, I interviewed Ross Perot back in the day when he ran, as a journalist, and he also had an ideology. He wasn't if you don't need anybody else, you can have me.
No,
which
big giant seconds out. That was his ideology.
Yeah. So, but the thing is that I think maybe that's the deal, is to say to but we all tried that. I certainly tried that in Nebraska. And one of the things that I heard a guy saying today was, we're not like the other parties, we're an alternative. Well, I'm telling you what, the Green Party's been an alternative that Republicans turn to in many cases. The Green Party, which is called the Mountain Party in West Virginia, is almost all former angry Republicans that are sick of the Republican Party no longer being the party of Lincoln. To think that the Green Party's made out of Democrats is a delusion that, semi-lefties have been perpetuating for a long time. So the fact that there are third political parties that say, oh, by the way, over here, the globe is burning, and oh, by the way, it is, and bring up important issues that then can pull the major parties, because that's the only system we're allowed to have here. And that's because of Lincoln. Like, as soon as the Republicans in 6 years became the party of nothing to the party of the president, they said, well, we got to make sure no other third party grows that fast ever again. And they just started passing ballot access laws that kept third parties powerless. So the system is built to keep third parties off of the ballot. And now we've got guys and gals from inside the system saying they want a third party. It's just fascinating.
No, this is fascinating that you have these, these. I still put, someone like Christy Todd Whitman or David Jolly in the elite category. Not so much Andrew Yang. He's a rich guy who can buy himself access. But it's interesting that they're the ones leading this and not a grassroots uprising. I don't know many people who go, gee, I wish we had a forward party that doesn't have any real policy chops or anything that they're going to do that's going to make our lives better. Look, I understand the Labor Party, I understand the Green Party, I understand different ideas of, hey, we need to do this and this is our focus. I don't understand we're not right or left, we're forward. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and could it be as simple as what people say about Trump? It's a scam to raise money.
Could be.
I mean, is it that easy? Is it that simple? It seems kind of crappy if that's the case, because that's really neither my opinion of Andrew Yang nor my opinion of Christy Todd Whitman, who I also abhor from her 9/11 days when she told firefighters they didn't need to wear their respirators. I mean, sure, the air is fine when it was full of particulate matter, including hundreds of victims. And so she's done some things that are just terrible, but I don't think she did them out of, is the word possibly stupidity or ignorance or expedience? But to just do this just to raise money,
yeah.
I don't think that's as likely as to do it just to put a monkey wrench somewhere. And I think the monkey wrench factor is going to be figured in somehow.
What's that saying? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Is this one of those? For people like you and me who are absolute political junkies,
It's fascinating. Like, what are you doing? It's the craziest thing I've heard of.
No, what's fascinating is who are their target? Who are their targets? Who do they think they're going to bring along? Andrew Yang, early on was kind of a darling of the left, but then kind of, moved center right almost, if you will, kind of into Christy Todd Whitman's space. So it's an interesting marriage in my view. I'm curious your thought.
I don't know. The only other thing I can think of is it is literally to pull the fangs out of the legitimate third parties. Like, that's the other rhetoric they've been saying all along, is the third parties all failed. Well, the Green Party's going on 40 years old. The Libertarian Party is highly successful. It all depends on what you define success as. But in the United States, where we do not have a parliamentary system, where we have a winner-take-all, a plurality of the vote gets a totality of the power, which is the stupidest thing in the end of any political system, in this United States, if they really wanted to affect change, they wouldn't be starting a new political party. They would be, in each state legislature, changing the ballot access laws to open it up, to have instant runoff voting, to allow for 3, 4, 5 candidates to have people have choice, like they do in, in Australia or Portland, Maine, or the Academy Awards, where there are 5 choices, but nobody thinks Little Miss Sunshine robbed Queenie, right? I mean, there are all kinds of ways that you could be actually legitimately and literally opening up the electorate to have choices without doing this crazy, okay, we're going to build a new party from the top down. That's not how parties get built, and it's certainly not how change happens.
I still say Queenie was robbed. It was rigged.
Well, that strip scene at the end of Little Miss Sunshine just stole everything. Who expected that to happen? Oh, no, spoiler alert. On a 20-year-old movie.
Yeah, you listen to the Rick Smith Show. We're here with Pat LaMarche, author, homelessness advocate, and a former vice presidential candidate. I want to talk about this is crazy, but I want to talk about your work with the homeless. I know you've got an event coming up in a couple of months it's been near and dear to your heart. I know here locally you did this blanket display that you're going to be taking to DC in December. I wanted to get some thoughts on what you're doing there and how folks can help. What's going on?
Oh, thanks. I'm thrilled that you asked. We are going to put blankets from all 50 states and territories down on the west lawn of the United States Capitol. We've got the Capitol Police permits. We've got the Capitol Architect permits. We are going to make this giant art installation. Do you remember the AIDS blanket?
Yep.
Okay, so it's just like that, but nothing like it. So the AIDS blanket was this one-piece giant blanket that represented people lost, and it was enormously impactful, and it was folded up or rolled up and moved around to make a big statement about, about the loss and the cost of all of these people. Well, our blanket is different because we're going to they're handmade blankets coming from all over the country, knitted, crocheted, quilted, woven, whatever your artisan craft is. And they're not attached to each other. They're laid next to each other, and then the very next day they are distributed to people in need. In 24 hours, we'll go from massive 19,000 square foot art installation to boom, into the hands of people in need. So if someone wants to make a blanket for a perfect stranger, you can get a hold of us at memorialblanket.org. You can sign up for the newsletter. You can make a blanket. You can sign up for your local state. We have a group for every single state. You can get to know other people in your state that are doing it. If you sign up for the newsletter, we will send you information on how to ship the blankets. If you can't afford to ship a blanket, we will cover the cost of shipping the blankets. This is not supposed to be anything but an opportunity for everyone who thinks they want to make a difference to actually be able to make one. In that way, we show what 1,000 people laying on the Capitol lawn would look like instead of hiding in alleyways or sleeping in their car in a Walmart parking lot. And at the same time, 24 hours later, somebody gets a blanket on December 22nd, after the longest night of the year and the coldest time of the year.
Yeah.
So, it's really important that people get involved, and it's really important that we start feeling like we can do something about this homelessness problem because it is 100% curable. All we have to do is know about it and fix it.
Yeah, instead of having elected leaders who say, no, we should just put them off in places out of town or on islands or who knows where.
Right.
This is a problem, as you said. We can solve this.
Yeah, we got babies being born into homelessness. As a better part of 10 years, I ran homeless shelters, and I have been in delivery rooms meeting the newest homeless person as they're born into homelessness. And, moms and parents are, they're pregnant, they're in homelessness, they have the baby. It doesn't change anything. That's why we have these high infant mortality rates, high maternal mortality rates. The misnomer is they want to be homeless or they've asked for it. Nobody asks for it. And if it's one of the maybe 10% of the people that has mental illness or substance abuse, well, I can take you to a home and show you someone with mental illness. I can take you to a home and show you someone who's a substance abuser. The only difference between these people is whether or not they've got enough money to live.
Yep.
So it's poverty that causes homelessness. And poverty can affect anybody who's poor.
No, right? In a country where we haven't raised the minimum wage in 13 years, what's amazing to me is the number of people who have jobs working in our fast food and our service industries who are homeless and live in shelters and live on the street and show up to work every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I tell people. If you don't mind that the guy who just made your cheeseburger has nowhere to wash his hands, bon appetit. Have a good time, right? You've got to care about each other. If not because it's the right thing to do, then because it's self-preservation in the long run.
There you go. Go to the radical self-interest part. There you go. That's the selling part, I guess, in this country. It's no longer, don't worry, it's not I care about my brother, be my brother's keeper. It's I got to care about myself first. And I guess that's what we have to do today, isn't it?
Well, yeah, except this blanket project proved me wrong, proves us all wrong, because last year we just asked people to make blankets. When I showed up for the blankets to be delivered on December 21st of 2021, I might have had 15 blankets for all I knew, and we had 219. And that was just in tiny little Carlisle in central Pennsylvania.
Nice.
219 blankets handmade by people who self-selected to make a difference. That's amazing. And I had this community around me delivering blankets, and I was like, hey, you know what? They told us we aren't a community anymore, but we are. And they told us we couldn't fix a problem, but we are. We're doing something to fix a problem. And even if it's just mitigating a tiny bit of suffering being mitigated is the point. It's what we should do for each other. And I watched it happen last year. And to be at the west lawn of the Capitol, the site of really brutal and disgusting behavior on January 6th, of 2021, now we're going to be there with a sign of absolute love and support for each other. And I just hope we want every congressperson to take a blanket home. And when they get home, we want them to find a local shelter and deliver it. We want every single congressperson, we will give one of these blankets and ask them to hand deliver it to a shelter in their home district so they can see up front and in person the need. And that's our goal for this trip to D.C., is to make sure that these Congress people bring the blankets home.
There you go.
And not to their house, but to the house of a person in need.
There you go. Memorialblanket.org, the website, correct?
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
We'll get that out on social media. Hope folks will participate, and hoping for a fabulous event. Pat, as always, I appreciate the time. Good stuff.
I love you, Rick. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, our good friend Pat LaMarche. Again, memorialblankets.org, the website. Check that out. As I always say, if you want to change the world, start by changing your little piece of it. That's how we begin. Gonna take a quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1932. That was the day that flames burnt in the U.S. Capitol. The U.S. Armed Forces set fire to a shanty town of unemployed World War I veterans. The veterans had come to the Capitol to demand the bonus that they had been promised for their service. The payment was not due until 1945. But the nation was in the throes of the Great Depression. Desperate veterans demanded the bonus be paid early. Walter W. Walters, a veteran and unemployed former cannery worker, called for his fellow veterans to go to Washington, D.C. and demand payment. From across the country, veterans answered the call. Many hopped trains to make their way to the nation's capital. They called themselves the Bonus Expeditionary Force. This echoed the American Expeditionary Force, the name for U.S. troops that had fought in France during World War I. In May, the veterans began to arrive in Washington, D.C. They set up tents and shelters in vacant lots and open spaces. The largest encampment was along the Anacostia River. Some in Washington began to warn that the 8,000 protesters of the Bonus Army were led by communists. But retired Marine Corps Major General Smedley Butler came to the camp to encourage the protesters. He said,
"I never saw such fine Americanism as is exhibited by you people. You have just as much right to have a lobby here as any steel corporation. Makes me so damn mad a whole lot of people speak of you as tramps. By God, they didn't speak of you as tramps in 1917 and 18. No."
But Army Chief of Staff General MacArthur was less sympathetic. He ordered troops to clear out the veterans. With cavalry, tanks, rifles, and tear gas, they ousted the protesters and burnt the Anacostia River encampment to the ground.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
Well, who would have thought? I mentioned Smedley Butler earlier, and there's a clip of him in our Labor History in 2 segments. And, you know, it's one of those things. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Corporate America making massive profits off the backs of we the people. This, again, not surprising. Shell posted a record quarterly profit of $11.5 billion. We're waiting for Exxon and Chevron next. But Shell has adjusted earnings of $11.5 billion in the second quarter, more than double what they had the same period last year. And again, up from the $9.1 billion in the first quarter. So record profit over record profit, far exceeding last year. They are doing really, really well. And what are they doing with all of this money? What are they planning on doing? Oh, what? Oh, gee, what do you think they're going to do with all of this money that they've now found? Of course, they're going to buy back their shares. They're going to buy $6 billion worth of shares back. And that made, what happened? That made their share costs rise by $1 and some change. And you go, hold on, wait a second. I thought this was Joe Biden's fault. I thought the gas prices increase was Joe Biden's fault. No, it's Shell. It's Exxon. It's these folks who have been raising prices and gouging us for so long. It's corporate America. And it goes back to what Smedley Butler said. It goes back to how our government treats our soldiers. It goes back to how corporations treat their customers. It really is quite remarkable, and we put up with it, and we put up with it in a way that puts us at odds with each other. And I'm waiting for this moment. I'm waiting for this moment where we go, you know what? No more. I'm waiting for this moment where we go, it's time to stand together and fight together and demand better. Just that simple. And we can. And this is where the organizing that's going on, especially in workplaces across this country, gives me such great hope. This is where coming together and look, we can, because past generations have. This is just where we are. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you've missed any portion of the program, podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, everywhere in between. That's where we are. Wherever you get yours, you'll find ours. That's simple.
So what was once the Build Back Better bill that was going to make a huge impact potentially with climate is now going to be called the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022.
Manchin and Schumer reach deal on climate bill. Russia slashes gas deliveries to Europe. Plus,
this is one of the largest, if not the largest, vehicle procurement in history.
U.S. Postal Service quadruples its plan to buy all-electric delivery trucks.
All of that quadruplication and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
Out west, the extreme heat comes with a side of drought. California has imposed water restrictions this year. It's gotten so bad, Disneyland had to change the name of Splash Mountain to Dusty Gulch.
Based on a true story, this is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, Lucy has teed up the football once again for Charlie Brown. Joe Manchin has claimed to make a deal with Chuck Schumer on a climate bill.
Yes, indeed. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer announced on Wednesday that he has reached a deal with obstructionist Democratic Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia to advance legislation on health care, energy, and climate. The bill would raise $740 billion over 10 years through a tax on corporations and the wealthy, with $370 billion of that going to fund climate and clean energy initiatives.
That's great.
While some Democrats have expressed support for the surprise deal, the devil may be in the details of the 725-page bill, which environmental groups are studying as we go to air. Though Schumer and Manchin claim it will cut carbon emissions 40% by 2030,
that's great.
It also appears to include gifts to the fossil fuel industry to win Manchin over. One provision, for example, seems to only allow the approval of wind and solar projects on public lands if oil and gas lease sales continue, with millions of acres made available onshore and offshore every year.
So to get renewable energy, we have to promise to keep developing oil and gas.
Exactly. That means President Biden won't be able to halt new oil and gas leasing on federal lands if it passes. Schumer says he will bring up the bill for a vote within a week. All 50 Democrats would be needed in the Senate for passage, along with passage in the House. We will see if they and Manchin actually vote for it.
We will see.
Meanwhile, the climate crisis continues unabated. In Nevada, a third set of human remains has been recovered in rapidly declining Lake Mead, which is drying up due to the historic climate-intensified mega drought in the West.
To be clear, these are remains that were put in there decades ago.
One hopes.
Exactly.
In Albuquerque, New Mexico, drought has reduced the Rio Grande River to a trickle for the first time in 40 years. The Pacific Northwest is grappling with a dangerous multi-day extreme heat wave that has set new heat records in Seattle, Portland, and other cities. And St. Louis, Missouri, on Tuesday was hit with an historic deluge that shattered the city's single-day rainfall record. Some areas saw at least 12 inches of rain in mere hours, which triggered deadly flash flooding, requiring hundreds of water rescues across the area. Meteorologist Bob Henson of Yale Climate Connection says, quote, record rain in St. Louis is what climate change looks like.
Everything is fine.
In other news, in Europe, to the surprise of no one, Russia's state-owned energy giant Gazprom has announced it will slash gas pipeline deliveries to Europe to just 20% of normal capacity. EU leaders say Russia is using energy blackmail to splinter the coalition's united opposition to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Russia's squeeze play has intensified global competition for fossil gas supplies, pushing up prices everywhere. Of course, prices were already surging due to skyrocketing demand during multiple concurrent heat waves across the Northern Hemisphere. But there is a bit of good news. Public pressure has forced the U.S. Postal Service to backtrack on its controversial plan to replace its ancient gas-guzzling delivery trucks with new gas-guzzling delivery trucks. Originally, the Postal Service said it would electrify only 10% of the 165,000 vehicles to be replaced. But after a massive public pressure campaign by everyday Americans and environmental groups, the Postal Service now says at least 40% of the trucks will be all all electric. And that matters for climate change because these delivery trucks will be used for decades. And it also matters for cleaning up neighborhood air pollution. On a recent broadcast, attorney Adrian Martinez of nonprofit environmental law firm Earth Justice said electrifying 40% of the fleet is not enough, but they will continue to push the Postal Service to go to 100%.
And this public pressure is working. You still got a long way to go with them, but it shows you that the more you weigh in, the more you can make progress.
Keep up the pressure. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com.
Are you tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
I'm still hung up on this Andrew Torba, the CEO of Gab, which I didn't know that you could buy your way into having mandatory people when they sign up. They automatically follow whoever pays you to follow. I didn't realize you could do that. Evidently, everyone who signs up automatically follows this Torba guy, and I guess from what I've been told, our candidate running for governor here in Pennsylvania, our Nazi, evidently they mandatorily follow him as well. Very, very bizarre. But Torba, again, this idea of what is a man. The attack on Mike Pence being feminine and submissive, I found interesting. Torba says we need Christian men who embrace their God-given masculine energy to conquer and lead. He said currently we have weak and pathetic emasculated Christian men like Mike Pence who embrace submissive feminine energy. Is he calling Mike Pence gay? I mean, is that what he's getting at here? Because I've seen a picture of Andrew Torba. I got questions. But he says this ends now. He said we're going to build a Christian movement and they're going to be exclusively Christian. None of those others. Scary stuff here, folks. Here to share some thoughts on just how scary, especially when you've got Marjorie Three Names saying, we want toxic masculinity. I'm not quite sure she knows even what that means. But here to share some thoughts, I've asked our good friend Max Burns to come talk with us. Max is a columnist over at the Daily Beast. Also does a bunch of stuff over at Rebel HQ. Max, thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks for having me.
So, toxic masculinity. Evidently, Marjorie Three Names believes this is the first requirement to be in the military. You can be masculine without being toxic, no?
Yeah. Well, the complaint here seems to be that there's just not enough freedom for men to be men in the military, which Marjorie Taylor Greene seems to think means rejecting vaccine mandates and not being arrested for rape, which is a pretty toxic level of masculinity. And she blames being prosecuted for rape for being a reason that men aren't rejoining the military, which honestly is a disgusting way to describe American soldiers. These are people who claim to love the troops, and they're sitting there calling every man who wants to go into the private sector a rapist.
Yeah, it's interesting, and what's more interesting to me is I look at her, and I put her next to her partner there, the forehead guy, Matt Gaetz, who said that the women who are in favor of being able to control their own bodies are odious and no one wants to impregnate. I find her much more toxically masculine than him. I'm confused.
Yeah, it is. It's a race to the bottom, and this is all about fundraising. This is all about cutting these clips, sending them out to the right to outrage them and part them from their money. I mean, this is a tactic that Donald Trump taught her how to do, and she is excellent at it. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene and the GOP understand why the military is struggling, and they've done absolutely nothing to help. So the best thing they have is to throw up these smoke screens and hope voters believe them.
Especially after today, and I'm sure you saw Jon Stewart in his rightful outrage. If this is America first, then America's blanked. Starting with the giant F, because if we can't get the PAC Act passed, I don't know what. I'm sorry. Even if you're a toxic, masculine guy, you've got to be questioning: do I want to go into a military that's not going to take care of me when I get sick, fighting in your name? Just kind of makes you wonder.
You can be masculine as can be. You're still going to get sick if you get sprayed with Agent Orange. And that's what Republicans just stood against. This was a fund that's been in the works for years, since the George W. Bush years, to provide supplemental health care and benefits for soldiers who were victims of Agent Orange, victims of toxic fumes from burn pits in Iraq and Afghanistan. And Republicans have essentially said, no, we have heard you. We've met with you, and we don't care. You don't get a cent from us. That's money we need for tax cuts.
And this is the part that gets me, because we just had 4 years of the former guy who was gonna fix the VA, but we know as the VA is still 50,000 workers short. We know the budgets have been stagnant and actually in some cases I believe declining. We haven't fixed any of the problems, and this is stuff as you've pointed out, decades now long. And yet we still see them wrap themselves in the flag and wrap themselves around the troops and take their photo ops and still not being held accountable for it.
Yeah, I mean, we've entirely left these military families behind. One of the worst things that's happened to them was when Republicans refused to extend the child tax credit. I mean, that cut child poverty by half in less than a year. It was a huge benefit to families, disproportionately families in red states, who are voting for Republicans, who now will see their children slide back into poverty. I mean, that's how we repay our veterans and our military families.
Yeah, I remember that. And as I said, when it happened, I said, it's probably the most cruel thing that you could have done. I said, look, I grew up in poverty, and at the end of the month, the cupboards were always bare. But, I thought that's how life was. Thought everyone was like that. Didn't know any better. Didn't know that there was a possibility that life could be any different. So when you gave these families an opportunity to go, hey, things can be different, and made things a little bit better with I'm talking a very meager amount, $300 a month. I'm sorry, not a huge amount of money, but life-changing to a lot of these families at the bottom of our economy. And then to, right after Christmas, go, oh yeah, no, we're going to swap this away. And then it's back to normal, or was normal. That's just cruel.
It is. And the cruelty, as always, is the point. I mean, this is something that Republicans admit works. Mitt Romney has said this worked. This was one of the most effective anti-poverty measures ever passed. The reason they didn't extend it is because they didn't want Democrats to have a win. I mean, children will go hungry because of this petty politics. And this is what Marjorie Taylor Greene is celebrating every day.
Yeah, now she brought up the toxic masculinity thing, and I said, look, you can be masculine. You don't have to be an a-hole. The problem is the people who are going to take this, I'm just being toxic masculine or whatever. I don't know how you're going to frame that. I'm sure there are going to be T-shirts drawn up of where you could just go a-hole. But I now see Missouri Senator Josh Hawley is going to have a new book out, Manhood. The masculine virtues Americans need. And I'm going, I don't know. I don't know that he's the guy I want trying to define what masculine is. Someone who, I don't see him as my definition of masculine. But I'm curious your thoughts. What can we expect from Mr. GQ Snappy Dresser?
Well, he is an excellent runner. I'll give him that. He can cover ground quickly when he needs to get out of a place. But it's no surprise. Like Josh Hawley's announcing essentially that he's selling his manhood to anyone who will buy. And that's really nothing new for him. The difference is he's used to doing it for oil companies and for people that are raiding the economy. I mean, if you look at Josh Hawley, this is entirely a performance. This is a man who stood up and raised his fist, pretended to be macho, cheered on these protesters until the minute he could see them in the hallways. And then he fled. And you note he ran away alone. He didn't say to any of his staff, come with me. He ran and left them behind. That's the kind of manhood Josh Hawley shows.
Now, will that be in the book, do you think?
I'm amazed. I'll be surprised if this book isn't done in crayon.
No, because here's the thing. I mean, they want to tell us what a woman is. I'm curious. I'm really curious to find out what Josh Hawley and the right thinks a man is. This kind of, because look, we're defining roles. I think this is a discussion we should have on a certain level. I would like to see what their worldview is.
Yeah, and this is really the core moving argument for MAGA, is that a man doesn't follow the law if he thinks it's wrong. A man isn't told what to do. And it's essentially this last bullying push of saying, be a man and stand behind this fascist ideology. Put away your commitment to law, your commitment to democracy, and impress these people who strive to make these people want to impress them. And that's why these people raided the Capitol. It's why Josh Hawley encouraged them, and he's hoping now to make a buck off it. I mean, it's gross.
Yeah, it's crazy. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're at Max Burns. Max is a Democratic strategist, columnist over at The Daily Beast. TheDailyBeast.com is where you can check out the work that he does. Also wanted to get your thoughts on Trump was back to Washington, the triumphant return to the scene of the crime, if you will. The Nazi rally, well, kind of, the older version. This Turning Points USA Complaint Fest speech that he gave, but to me, a lot more dangerous than just the whining about the Russia investigation and the perfect phone call and all of his grievances. But he laid out a pathway forward of using our National Guard as law enforcement. We're going to start executing people. We're going to be, usurping states' rights by, getting rid of weak governors and a kind of a frightening future.
Yeah, I mean, if he sounds a lot like the strongmen that we've opposed historically, that's not a mistake. Donald Trump is telling you exactly what he's going to do. He said, 1 week trials for suspected drug dealers and then execute them. He's said, allying with people like Russia and Saudi Arabia. He's talked about using the military to enforce election laws. These are things that are not just gray areas. They are explicitly forbidden by the Constitution and our structure of government. Donald Trump is telling you he doesn't care. And if he can get the votes, he will take these things down.
Yeah, but here's the thing. They've never read the Constitution, just like they've never read the Bible. So are you surprised when they get all that stuff wrong too?
They've only read Manhood. It's the new Bible of the right. So God help them.
Only if it's a picture book with pop-ups.
Oh God, you can't sell that in bookstores where children go.
Well, this is true, and maybe they'll sit on it. There is that. But Max, as always, I appreciate the time. Great stuff, my friend. I got to tell you, this stuff writes itself.
It does. I just wish it was happier endings for all of us. But thanks so much for having me.
Max, always good stuff, brother. I appreciate it. Keep up the great work. Our good friend Max Burns. Make sure you check out the work that he does over at The Daily Beast, thedailybeast.com. Quick break, right back with your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. This is The Rick Smith Show. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. Generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So Susan Collins doesn't think anything is going to get done on same-sex marriage. We're not going to protect people's rights to marry. all because she's angry, or Republicans are throwing a temper tantrum over the fact that something's gotten done on the climate on the tax front, which is, Republicans keep saying we need to lower the deficit. Actually does that. I personally don't think we need to be thinking about that in this moment. I think we need to be investing heavily in our country. I think we need to be doing a lot of things to get our ship righted. But this moves us in a direction to address climate change and address how badly skewed our tax code is. And it is a win for Joe Biden. No, I don't think anything else is going to get done. Republicans, I don't think are going to allow anything to happen, anything to get passed. No more wins for Joe Biden, which I think he's got to take the bull by the horn and start doing some things to right things. One of those fronts got to be on the student loan debt crisis. Something has to get done. Now, a lot of varying ideas. I keep coming back to my idea of just cancel the interest, pay back the principal. We move forward. We do away with that. I know a lot of people say, no, we need to cancel 50,000. We need to cancel all of it, all of that stuff. Something should be done, though. That's just my view. Let's go to the phones. We've got Nick from Wayne, PA on line 1. Nick, how are you today?
Awesome. Doing good, Rick. Thanks for having me.
What's on your mind, brother?
Well, in part, just what you mentioned about student debt, I think, quite saddening to see that, President Biden still hasn't really done anything on that issue. He still hasn't made a decision whether or not he's even going to extend the payment pause, because currently it's set to expire at the end of August. And, it's leaving a lot of folks sort of in and just, wondering for themselves what is going to happen past that. And, I've definitely talked to a lot of either within the debt collective, which is a national debtors union, or, just like other folks that I know. And it's just kind of like, Biden, hey, you promised 10K cancellation and more, but, he still hasn't really done any of it. And even actually today, just to quickly mention, the president of the NAACP actually, put out a statement, a letter to President Biden. And, in it, he, beautifully said, I think we pray that God grants you the courage to make a bold decision on student debt. Because Biden's just been kicking the can down the road.
Now, as I understand it, what I've been seeing is they're looking at extending the moratorium into next year. That's what this first step, I guess, is until into 2023. Is that not enough for the time being? Because I don't know that he has the authority to cancel all the debt, does he?
I mean, he does, to my knowledge, under the Higher Education Act, which I believe it was in 1965, or maybe before then, that was passed and reauthorized every time since. And there's, sort of this clause in it, which is called compromise and settlement, in which the, Secretary of Education and the President really, has the final executive authority to say over all of this federal student debt, which is about 92% of all student debt. There's, a chunk that's private as well. But it does have that executive authority to with a pen. You could almost think of it as turning all of these loans into grants. And, hey, it no longer exists for you. That, in my opinion, that's what it should be. And you need to treat higher education as a good, and really turn that corner and, make it so.
So let me ask you this, because this is my problem. This is my problem with just wiping it out. And while I think it's the right thing to do, and I'm with you on that level, I do see the political realities of it. You're going to have intergenerational jealousy all around. The older people who have paid their loans are going to go, hey, what about me? The younger people are going to go, hey, what did you do to fix the system so that I don't get screwed over? Are you going to forgive my debt going forward? Because then you're going to create a situation where younger people are going to go, hey, they forgave them, they're going to forgive us in the future. I can then go and run up as much as I want because they're going to forgive it in the future. There's a lot of consequence for doing it, and unintended consequences as well. What do you say to that?
Yeah, well, Rick, I say sort of 2 points. One, Biden technically, or any president, could technically, with this authority, continue to cancel debt over and over and over again, which I know many folks are like, what? Like, how could he do that? But he can, just like him, canceling it, for various other folks just right now, just under certain circumstances. But then the second thing of like the intergenerational jealousy, in all honesty, I have intergenerational, jealousy, intergenerational jealousy for, folks, came before me when actually college for, various parts was actually free or like extremely low cost because the state actually stepped in with actual meaningful funding. I mean, if you look at the state of PA with the Pennsylvania state system of higher education, even with the recent increase that was just given by the legislature, you're still not even back to where you were when the state system was founded. When the state system was founded in 1983, like $690 million in today's dollars, and they're only getting $550 million in the general appropriation. So it's really about, in my opinion, I envy those who came before me when it was low to no cost. But, at least that's at least part of my thought on it. And I wanted to mention, Rick, of just another sort of issue of what I've been seeing, and I don't know if you've been talking about it at all, but in the UK, there's been the RMT, which is like the Rail, Maritime, and Transport Union, has been doing strikes and, definitely gotten a lot of support. And I didn't know if you guys were covering it, but encourage that.
Yeah, I talked a little bit about it, and the people who are running on the conservative side are saying they're going to crack down on those workers, and we're going to make sure that they don't hold us hostage. And I said, get ready for that kind of rhetoric to come out of our conservative class here, because breaking unions is something Republicans love because Republicans hate working people.
Fair.
There you go. But Nick, appreciate the call, man. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. Thanks.
But no, on the student loan part, something has to be done. The sad reality is we've screwed over a generation of kids, and Nick's not wrong. That intergenerational jealousy that I keep hearing people, well, they didn't. I paid my debt. Yeah, not the same level. And I think back to a young relative who was telling me about her student loan situation, and I just mind blowing how you can run up the kind of numbers that she was talking about. I don't know that she's ever going to be able to pay it off. She wanted to be a vet, and the kind of money that she's going to become, whatever the next level down from a vet is, $100,000 in debt. And you go, how are you going to pay that back? That's a mortgage. And 20 years old. You go, how do you do that? And why should you have to? And, in a country where education is so important, because look, my generation was told the only way you're going to have a chance to be in the middle class is to get that golden ticket. And that golden ticket is a college degree, is that certificate. That's what you need to get into the middle class. And we took on increasingly, more and more skin in the game. Remember that? Remember the skin in the game nonsense? So we took that on. And they just made it more and more and more as we're cutting taxes for more and more wealthy people, more corporations. As we keep doing this, we just go, hey, we'll shift the costs onto students, on the families, because hey, skin in the game. To the point now where a lot of people are forgoing college, and we're losing a generation. We're losing a generation of people who could change the world because the return on investment isn't there. My generation, it was worth the debt you went into, because it would take you a couple of years, you paid it off, and you over a lifetime made significantly more than a high school educated worker would make. Now I'm not 100% sure, especially when you're talking $100,000 in debt. It's ludicrous. My problem again is, as I said to Nick, unless we fix the structure of the situation, because here's the thing. Joe Biden may cancel it. The next president may, but the next one may not. And then it becomes harder for the next person to do it, and the next person. And then that's where this breaks down. You get a Reagan who doesn't raise the minimum wage for 8 years. And then it becomes a little bit more difficult. This is my problem. We structurally we've got so much to fix. And again, for me, it all comes back to our tax code. It all comes back to the fact that we have redistributed wealth from the working class of this country up to the wealth class. And we've done that through bad policy. Bad policy has put us in this mess. And you know what can fix it? That's right, good policy. And that's going to take you, it's going to take me, it's going to take all of us voting for good people to say, hey, maybe we can do better. And it's going to take good people running for office. People like you and me who are going to do better for our neighbors and care about each other instead of just hooray for me and the heck with everyone else. At least that's my thought. Love to hear yours. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Also, never miss a moment. Grab the podcast. Wherever you get yours, you'll find ours. Quick break. Right back. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1932. That was the day that flames burnt in the U.S. Capitol. The U.S. Armed Forces set fire to a shanty town of unemployed World War I veterans. The veterans had come to the Capitol to demand the bonus that they had been promised for their service. The payment was not due until 1945. But the nation was in the throes of the Great Depression. Desperate veterans demanded the bonus be paid early. Walter W. Walters, a veteran and unemployed former cannery worker, called for his fellow veterans to go to Washington, D.C. and demand payment. From across the country, veterans answered the call. Many hopped trains to make their way to the nation's capital. They called themselves the Bonus Expeditionary Force. This echoed the American Expeditionary Force, the name for U.S. troops that had fought in France during World War I. In May, the veterans began to arrive in Washington, D.C. They set up tents and shelters in vacant lots and open spaces. The largest encampment was along the Anacostia River. Some in Washington began to warn that the 8,000 protesters of the Bonus Army were led by communists. But retired Marine Corps Major General Smedley Butler came to the camp to encourage the protesters. He said,
I never saw such fine Americanism as is exhibited by you people. You have just as much right to have a lobby here as any steel corporation. Makes me so damn mad a whole lot of people speak of you as tramps. By God, they didn't speak of you as tramps in 1917 and 18. No.
But Army Chief of Staff General MacArthur was less sympathetic. He ordered troops to clear out the veterans. With cavalry, tanks, rifles, and tear gas, they ousted the protesters and burnt the Anacostia River encampment to the ground.
Last July, several GOP senators combined their 5-watt intellects to charge that inflation was rising because of, quote, insane tax and spending spree of President Biden and the Democrats. Never mind that the insane spending is for such sensible, productive, and enormously popular national needs as child care and jobless benefits. Mitch McConnell's rabidly partisan flock saw the chance to politicize the public's legitimate worries about rising prices. You poor consumers are made to pay more for basics, they squawked, because of Socialist Joe's investment in grassroots people. Follow the ricocheting pinball of the GOP's logic. 1, they say that helping hard-hit families induces them to refuse to go to work. 2, this creates blockages in the global supply chain. 3, this causes shortages of everything. 4, this forces corporate bosses to raise all prices, which 5, slams the middle class and poor, so 6, lazy workers cause inflation. Whoa! Rube Goldberg couldn't have dreamed up a more fantastical diagram to deflect attention from what's really happening. Namely, that instead of an inflation problem, we have a corporate greed problem. Of course, the greedmeisters insist that their pursuit of excess corporate profits has not driven any price surges. In our economy of free market competition, they snap, prices are established by the law of supply and demand. It's the magic of the marketplace, they explain. But magicians don't do magic, they perform illusions. And the illusion of free market competition implodes when it hits the reality that our economy doesn't remotely resemble a competitive marketplace. This is Jim Hightower saying, for some 40 years, corporate-directed government policies have been transforming America into a monopoly nation, letting the few gouge the many. That's where inflation comes from.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, of course, Donald Trump is trying to defend his Saudi Gulf. I don't get this. I'm not a huge golf fan, but I'm trying to figure out why the Saudis are backing a golf tournament with Trump and all of this. I don't get it, but I don't get why a former president would throw his name. I guess I do. It's about money. It's the money. Lots of money. I got to wonder how much is being heaped on the former president, but he defended it, saying that, nobody's gotten to the bottom of 9/11. Nobody knows that most of the hijackers were Saudis. No, nobody knows that. Nobody. He said, unfortunately, nobody's gotten to the bottom of it. He said they should have. And as to the maniacs, he says, that did that horrible thing to our city, to our country, to the world. So nobody's really been there. But I can tell you that there's a lot of really great people that are out here today, and we're going to have a lot of fun, and we're going to celebrate. Yes, that is our former guy. Going to celebrate. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on the top stories of the day and the incredible work that they do. I've asked Austin Linfante to come talk with us. Austin is the multimedia guru and reporter over at Heartland Signal, our radio partner over at WCPT AM 820 in Chicago. HeartlandSignal.com, the website, if you want to check out the amazing work that they do there. Austin, thanks for taking time for us.
No problem. Thanks for having me. And really weird about the LIV stuff because, they've got so many good golfers, like Bubba Watson. I think they're about to get Phil Mickelson if they haven't already. It's such a weird... who wanted to go up against the PGA?
Mickelson I totally get, but all of the rest of them, you go, this can't be good. I mean, the potential backlash from this, I don't know that I would have jumped in the middle of, because look, I'm not going to watch it, and anybody who participates in this, in my view, is going to have some stink on them, and should. I mean, this is one of those things bad from top to bottom in my view.
Yeah, absolutely. And if it's not 9/11, then Jamal Khashoggi, or however you pronounce it, but a lot of stuff has come up about the Saudis in recent memory.
Yeah, no, and I was just gonna, as you brought that up, I was just going, what, at the turn, are we going to have a sawing event? I mean, is that, is this what we're going to do? We're going to sacrifice somebody at the turn? Just bad. It's bad optics. It's who he was. It's who he is, and I guess it's sadly where our country's going. I mean, nothing matters anymore. Facts don't matter. The 9/11 families group came out and said, look, we do know there's been tons done on this. It's just that you choose to be ignorant. And I guess, well, that again, too, highly indicative of our time.
Yeah, of course. It's just something else to throw into the fire.
So let's jump into some of your top stories of the day. My home state here of Pennsylvania, where I find myself, we've got a Nazi running for governor, and hey, good times ahead potentially. White Christian nationalism. We're going to destroy public education, and we're gonna arm teachers because gun-free zones are soft targets. Austin, we gotta toughen that up.
Yeah, so outside of paying money to Gab to make sure everyone who joins automatically follows him, some stuff has come out of how much he's trying to get guns into schools. Not out of schools, into schools. Basically, after the Uvalde shooting happened, he immediately said, oh, schools are soft targets, we need to arm teachers. Actually, this is Biden's fault if you go way back. None of which is true. In fact, there's been no cases of school shooters specifically targeting a school because of it's a soft target or because it's a gun-free zone. In fact, it's mainly just because of personal connection. And he's saying oh, this is what will stop shooters. I can't think of one time that has ever stopped a shooter, but meanwhile, there's been over 100 cases of armed teachers just leaving their bag out and letting students access a gun, or doing a cartwheel and a gun falls out of their belt loop, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You're talking fact there, man, and these are not fact-based folk. These are believing folk, and believing folk think that gun gonna make you happy and safe. Gun gonna make good. These true believers, man. You're never going to change their narrative with facts, because everything, Austin, is Joe Biden's fault. Everything.
Yeah, of course. And I kind of expected this from Mastriano of just the soft target thing. I didn't expect it to actually try to blame Joe Biden, but no, he went on Newsmax and tried to blame Joe Biden for this, basically saying like, "Oh, this is from the crime bill that he did," which no, it wasn't. It was a completely different thing.
But again, you seem to think that to these folks who would support him, and understand, I live in the heart of his support. Facts don't matter. What has been done over the years is a constant drumbeat of dehumanizing any others, and this fetishizing of guns, and this constant narrative that public education is bad, teachers are bad. He's going to gut half of our education funding in this state. You go down the list of all of the things he's going to do, but guns for the short term, and this is where I'm at. For now, he's talking, no, everybody should have guns until everything else goes. And then only, I do think there'll be a pivot. And then only certain people can have guns. And that would be the white Christian folk like him.
Yeah, of course. That's always how it goes. They just want to get all the stuff out to get exactly the exact type of people that he wants to have guns. And then as soon as they're comfortable enough, it's like, actually, no, never mind. Let's disarm people. I mean, it happened in California in the 80s.
Yeah, no, I find it interesting that he keeps talking about Nazis when, look in the mirror, we found one.
Yeah.
It is that simple. Let's move over to Ohio, my former home state where I grew up. There's potential to have another crazy guy there, and I'm hoping Tim Ryan, please. I think doing a great job there, running. But you've got J.D. Vance, the hillbilly elegy guy, who I don't really know where he is on the abortion ban issue. Does he?
We're not entirely sure either. So recently he's come and said like, oh, now that the Dobbs decision came down, it's good to ban abortion right now. But even then, like just recently, I want to say somewhere around, it was just sometime a few months ago, but it was like, actually, no, we'll just have it to the states, but I don't want a complete abortion ban. And usually this sort of stuff happens over a period of years or decades. This has been like a few months. But again, he's trying, this was something like as soon as he won the primary, he's shifted completely over to, that completely ugly primary that happened. No, I'm just a simple person who wrote a book once.
Yeah, no, I mean he's trying to find his way to not being so totally extreme, or exposing that he's totally extreme while being totally extreme. This is the problem I think the right has when sane, rational voters actually find out what they stand for. Maybe they're not so thrilled.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know, like, again, this is his first time ever running for office, so I don't know if he's just trying to like figure stuff out on the way or if he's just legitimately doesn't know it. But it's not good for voters.
It is not good. Let's move over to Wisconsin. One of my favorite candidates in the Senate race, Tom Nelson, dropped out. They had some other folks dropping out, throwing their support behind Mandela Barnes. I guess there's another candidate left, State Treasurer Sarah Goldowski, I guess her name is. Thoughts on what's going on there to take on Ron Johnson in November?
Yeah, it was a very big month for that race, that Democratic primary in Wisconsin. Basically, there were four main players: Mandela Barnes, Sarah Goldowski, Tom Nelson, and Alex Lasry. Two of them dropped out just within a few days of each other. Tom Nelson dropped first. That one was a little bit more expected. Basically, he was considered like widely polling fourth, and basically it was mainly between him and Barnes trying to get that progressive vote. And he just said, I'm just going to drop in, support Barnes, and then I'll figure stuff out from there. Lasry is a different thing, a way different thing. He's an executive for the Milwaukee Bucks, the NBA franchise. And he was neck and neck with Barnes the entire way through. So either there's been some internal polling or there's about to be some polls that dropped so he just wants to get out of the race. But the fact that he dropped when he was essentially a statistical tie with Mandela Barnes and had a good shot of winning that primary is very interesting. So now it's basically Mandela Barnes and Sarah Godlewski.
Yeah, you got to wonder what the polling between the guy who dropped out and Ron Johnson would be. I would like to see if there was that internal polling.
For sure, I think we all would, but again, I think they don't want to risk it, or they don't risk it with someone running for office for the first time with Alex Lasry. So, who knows? I think Wisconsin Democrats are really trying to pushing for, like, no matter what, we need to get out Ron Johnson.
Yeah, no, that's the goal. I liked Tom Nelson. I know he didn't have the resources to really compete, because look, to run for a Senate race in this country, you need millions of dollars, and that is the problem with our political system. To be honest with you, we've got to do something with campaign finance. We've got to do something to get the money out of this so that good people can run, so we don't end up having, this become basically polo for billionaires.
Yeah, Nelson had a really fine line between being a progressive, and he endorsed Medicare for all, and had what he called a blue-green deal, which was creating union jobs in clean energy, while also having the stuff to back up, like, hey, I'm from Ron Johnson's neck of the woods, and I've won this seat multiple times. So, yeah. He also did have a campaign thing of, like, basically having a garage sale.
No, I bought some stuff off of him. I got a sign that I bought off him because I thought it was a great idea. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show here with Austin Linfante. He's the multimedia guru and reporter over at Heartland Signal, heartlandsignal.com, the website, if you want to check out the work that they do there. I wanted to get your thoughts on the abortion debate that's going on in Indiana. Again, Indiana, kind of thrust into the news because of, well, you had the 10-year-old girl from Ohio being, having to find refuge there to get an abortion after being raped. But you've got this debate that was going on in Indiana, where one of the state reps there was giving really a heartfelt testimony. Can you walk us through some of that?
Yeah, definitely. So this is about Senate Bill 1, which is they scheduled a special session as soon as the Dobbs decision hit that repealed Roe v. Wade. And basically, they want to essentially ban abortion. Now they're starting to, like, go through all the amendments of, like, hey, what exceptions should we have? Should we have rape and incest and life of the mother? And of course, there's going to be people that said, like, no, it's all or nothing. But this one that they were debating was, hey, if a girl is 15 years or younger, then we'll give them 12 weeks to figure it out. If it's 16 or older, then you only get 8 weeks after conception. And that's still putting 16 and 17-year-old girls within and treating them like adults or something. And that's exactly what happened with Greg Taylor, the minority leader in the Indiana Senate. He gave a heartfelt testimony basically saying, this is my sister was 16 when she was traumatized with something like this, and if this ban was in now, this would traumatize her even more. And he got extremely upset by the time that that was voted on, and he had to walk out. And it was very upsetting to watch. And even then, there was one Republican that said, like, yeah, this is a really bad idea. He still voted for it,
of course,
but he said, like, yeah.
No, and this is the thing. This is the thing that, I don't think anyone thought that this would happen as quickly. I actually thought that John Roberts would be able to quell them a little bit, and it would be an incremental kind of killing off of Roe, that they would happen not this year, but next, and that you would have time to to kind of work through how you're going to deal with this, and there would be a slow progression. But the fact that now this is it, having to deal with all these things that nobody really thought of, and I would argue that my friends on the right don't even care about, has opened up a lot of people's eyes, and I think politically could be something that jumps up and bites the right in the behind.
Yeah, definitely. There's a saying that goes around the newsroom. Basically, they're the dog that caught the car right now. This is something that they've been trying to do since Roe came down in 1973. So, and now that they've had it, and now Roe's fully repealed, they're really messy. They don't know where to stand on, like, very basic stuff, like There should be exceptions for rape and incest, or there should be exceptions for ectopic pregnancies that will not be viable regardless of where it's at. They don't know where they stand, and they're very, very, very quickly slipping into the most extremes, even more than we would have thought.
No, it's crazy. Now let's move over to Minnesota because you got a state representative, Republican Tony Albright, who evidently went on a podcast and said that, that 10-year-old girl who had to travel to Indiana, since we talked about that, should have been forced to carry that kid, that child to term.
Yeah, that one was a very interesting story. So Tony Albright went on wrong about everything, basically. Minnesota Politics Report on podcast, and the host Javier Morcelo basically said, brought up that case of the Ohio girl who had to travel to Indiana. It basically, he starts off with saying like, obviously she would have been, we would have let her get an abortion. That's her safety in mind. And then in the span of 1 minute, basically, the host basically talks about what's going on, and Albright tries to go through the original things, and then he asks again, should that girl have gotten an abortion? And Albright just says, no, she should have carried it to term. Keep in mind, he's endorsing having a 10-year-old girl bringing pregnancy to full term. Not only would that just call her for life, that is extremely dangerous. Just having someone that's young, that's small, to deliver a pregnancy to term.
Yeah, I can't.
And
but understand who these people are. These are people who think these should be girls should be married at 13, pumping out little units, barefoot, pregnant in the kitchen, like the little woman should be. And you think I'm kidding? Look at Tennessee. Look at the stuff they're doing there.
Yeah, the Tennessee, initially they tried to legalize child marriage, and now, of course, that person went ahead and fixed it and kind of realized the mistake. But the fact that it was able to get that far into committee kind of shows that people are just willing to look over stuff.
It's crazy.
Like, you want to talk about grooming?
Yeah, exactly. You've got the test case. And this is the thing that gets me, Austin. And this is where, when I look at my friends on the right, anything that they're saying, anything that they're accusing of, it's stuff that they're doing.
Yeah, of course. It's always the case. It's very much projection, and it's something that they always do. And you can't shame them because they have no shame.
There you go. Last bit. Guns. You had the CEO of gun manufacturer Daniel Defense testifying in front of Congress, because this one is one of the most egregious. You got the kid with the gun. No, it's a safety ad, Austin. It's a safety. Putting an AR-15 in the kid, 5-6-year-old's lap. That's a safety precaution. Teaching them about guns.
Yeah, of course. That was really wild what happened yesterday. Basically, Mari Daniel, that CEO, was already having a bad hearing, and Chantel Brown, a Democrat from Ohio, brought up a tweet basically advertising an AR-15 or some sort of rifle, and basically a little toddler was holding it, and you could see the parent's hand, and basically looking like that the parent was giving the toddler the gun, and basically Mari Daniel was like, no, that's not that's completely appropriate. That's a safety ad. Yeah. You can tell because the parent is there. Something.
Aren't they the maker of the JR-15 or something? It's the little AR-15 just made for children.
I wouldn't doubt it, honestly. But yeah, someone asked them later on. It's like, okay, you took this down. Why did you take it down? Oh, it was inappropriate after the Uvalde shooting. So, and there's wait, so it was inappropriate for that to talk about guns with children with Uvalde shooting, but it's inappropriate. But it's also appropriate with talk of kids with guns for this. It didn't make any sense. But he's like, no, that was a safety thing. But you took it down because of Uvalde, right? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I stand corrected. It was not Daniel Defense with the JR-15. It was We One Tactical. We One Tactical, who makes the JR-15, the Junior Rifle 15 assault style weapon, 20% smaller, 20% lighter, 2 to 3 pounds. So the little hands can use it.
Damn,
it's America. Right. Good capitalism right there. But Austin, I appreciate the time as always. Great stuff. The work you guys do, incredible. Hope folks will take a look at the website, heartlandsignal.com. Thanks so much, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Stay cool.
Good stuff. Our good friend Austin Linfante. Again, make sure you check out the work that they do there at heartlandsignal.com. I'm going to take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk. Are you tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute. Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Check out the website, thericksmithshow.com. Questions, comments, something on your mind, email me, rick at thericksmithshow.com. If you missed any portion of the program, podcast, that's where you go to get all of the programs. Make sure you never miss anything. A website, also wherever you get yours, you'll find us. Now, John Field, we've had John on the program here. You'll know him as the guy who pushed the 9/11 responders bill along with Jon Stewart. One of the more outspoken folks, a little sometimes a little salty language. Had him on the program. Yeah, not overly FCC friendly sometimes, and went into a tirade, rightfully so, I may add, over the fact that the Republicans blocked the PACT Act. We talked about this yesterday. The fact that there are, people that we put up on pedestals called heroes. We sent them into harm's way, and now we are refusing to cover their health care and forcing. And again, this is what we did in 9/11. This is the same kind of thing. Took years to get those people that, again, we called heroes. They showed up the minute the attack happened to help try and find survivors, and they worked, day and night. And Christy Todd Whitman, who we talked about earlier, she said, "No, don't worry. The air is fine. Don't worry about it. The air's fine." Took years to get a bill to help get them the health care that they need, and now we've got veterans that were subject to these burn pits, these toxins. They're saying about 3 million. And we can't get the health care for them. And he went after Pat Toomey in quite a very interesting way. He said, hope that his wife would divorce him, hope his dog would bite him, hope he'd lose his own health care. All things that I think, I'll be honest, kind of deserving. Called him, a piece of excrement. I think that's a nice way of putting it. But the reality is he, Toomey's not alone. There were a number of Republicans, because understand, this had passed just a couple of weeks before. It passed the Senate 84-14. And now for them to refuse, cruel comes up. Vile, that comes up. There's a bunch of this that's just infuriating, but not surprising, because again, this is who they are. It's about the politics, because it's probably now. Look, I don't believe that it's about the bill. I don't believe there's anything they find objectionable. No, they're used to wrapping themselves in the flag and surrounding themselves with veterans. And look, you need to have veterans around if you're going to surround yourself with them to take photo ops and get them to support you. You need to have them around. So they eventually have to pass this. And as I said yesterday, it's my view that this is them being ticked off that some of the climate stuff got done. Some of the tax stuff got done after the CHIPS Act passed. That this is them just, throwing a temper tantrum. This is that tit for tat kind of thing. But in the process, what happens is, well, we've got veterans who are struggling. We've got people who aren't getting the health care that they earned. It's not even deserved. It's what we owe them. And the fact that you have these Republicans who block this, and it's who they are. Disgraceful. But I guess, as I always say, Republicans hate working people. Am I shocked? No. And you shouldn't be either. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you miss any portion of the program, podcast. Appreciate you being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.